And welcome to Dred the Stigma, where open discussion and education is what it takes to end the stigma on mental health. I am your host, Otis B. Dreads. I have two lovely co-hosts. We're going to bring them in one sec. Just wanted to go over a little housekeeping concerning the YouTube page. We do have a YouTube channel up, so please feel free to subscribe and follow us there, because here soon, trying to connect StreamYard to YouTube. It takes 24, 48 hours. I thought I did it in enough advance. I did not. So still waiting for that to be authorized and connect. Otherwise, we would be over there live. So this being the pilot episode, just getting things together, getting our routine down. So right now, of course, if you're watching, it is on Facebook. So and please, you share the link because this is very important. Mental health stigma is extremely important, and it's extremely dangerous. So I think without further ado, I'd like to bring in one of the lovely co-hosts we have here, Miss Lydia Manson. Lydia, how are you, dear?
I've been better.
Yeah, well, this is the show to talk about it. No reason to, well, I'm sorry to hear that. I have also been in better spirits, but I'm trying to get into acting, so I'm acting like everything is okay.
Right? Isn't that how we go?
That is a lot of times how we do it. So how you been? You say you're just okay. What's going on? You are an actress. And why don't you just tell us a little bit, about that?
So I have been acting in indie films for almost like 3.5 years now. And it seems like the last few months, everything is like starting to come out. So everybody thinks I'm like super busy. And I'm like, I just sit at home most of the time. But I'm at that age now, like I'm 35. And most of like the casting calls I see are like young to mid 20s, and I can't pass for 25 anymore,
Right.
So it's difficult. And then, I had over like the last 6 months, I probably had 4 or 5 auditions that, I had the sides for, and then I just couldn't do it. I could not film myself. I knew other people that were, Facebook friends of mine that I know are successful. I knew they were putting in for the same role. So it got in my head where I'm like, what's the point? I'm not going to get it.
Yeah.
Like, they're better than me, like
Yeah.
they've been in a lot more projects. They're more seasoned. So that's where I'm at with that now. Like, I'm struggling with that because I'm like, I don't know if I want to keep doing it. Like, I don't know. It's up in the air.
Yeah, it can get, a little overwhelming. I've done that with podcasts in the past.
Oh my God, yes.
I think, oh well, nobody's listening. What's the point? Nobody cares. There's so many podcasts out there, just like you were mentioning. There's so many, actors, actresses, out there that may have more experience. There's better looking podcasts out there. Why am I doing this? And I've had to struggle with not giving up and being a little bit more resilient. even though, it's a slow progress. But thankfully, I did the Night of the Living Dreads has been going on
Mhm.
for, about 6 years now.
I was
Coming
on
up.
it.
Yeah, you were. And so it's been out for like 6 years. I can't tell you how many times during that 6 years that I wanted to, give up and be like, I just don't want to do this. I did take like a year hiatus, um, and decided, I wasn't even going to come back. I was like, hell, it's been a year.
Mhm.
Why even come back? Nobody's missed me. Nobody's hit me up like, man, why ain't you doing the podcast? What's the point? Like you said, what's the point? I'll just go off on another venture or whatever.
Well,
But
I had my podcast, Just the Deeds,
yeah,
going for about a year. Um, and then I just stopped. It was it didn't go in the direction that I wanted it to go in. It started getting to the point where I wanted it to be all things strange and unusual. So I was doing like a lot of episodes on cryptids, and I was having people come on, and I'm like, oh, okay, like, what do you know about this? But they were indie people, and nothing against them. Um, they didn't do any like research, which I mean, I get it. Um, but they just wanted to promote their
right,
film and like
yeah,
Indiegogo. And I'm like, that's not really what I want this to be about. So then it just got to the point where I was having like indie directors and indie actresses and stuff come on. And, like it's great to speak to them and learn from them. But I'm like, that's not what I wanted this to be.
wasn't
So,
that kind of a show? Yeah, and I've seen a couple episodes of that. I found, what was it, a chicken or something? There
oh,
was.
Mike the Headless Chicken. That was the first episode.
Yes, yes, I remember that. That's what sticks out. So yeah, I mean, to get on and just use somebody's platform that they had to put together,
Hmm.
that they had to, organize and be the head of, just to do some shameless promotion. There are podcasts out there. I do another one, the Indie Horror Junkie podcast. That's a podcast where you come on and the spotlight's on you. That was not the case with yours, and that can get a little discouraging.
Yeah, because I'm like, oh, they don't really like me. They really don't want to talk to me. They just want to,
Right,
you know, see who is watching, which
right,
I understand because like
sure.
I've been part of Indiegogos and
Mhm.
it's really difficult. You have to stay on top of it. Like you have to be posting daily. You have
Yeah.
to do things that other people aren't doing. That's how you're going to make your money. I fully get it. Like, I'm not knocking anybody that came on just to promote their film. Like, I get it.
Hmm.
But it just, for me, was not what I wanted anymore.
And
So,
that's discouraging because it was a pretty cool show. You had some pretty cool stories. That's where I learned about the headless chicken.
oh, I love Mike the Headless Chicken.
Yes.
And
And so go ahead.
well, that's when I realized that when you have a podcast on your own, it is very difficult to speak for an hour
It is.
by yourself.
By yourself, it really is.
And I had all this research about Mike the Headless Chicken, and I was like, no, I'll be fine. I can do an hour, like I can do it. Yeah, I was done with everything within 35 minutes.
Right.
So that's when I realized I was like, I need to start having people come on so that we can discuss these things, like the Loch Ness monster, like things like that.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, it does make it easier when you have somebody else. Um, I think before we do bring Debbie on, let's talk. We're doing a who, what, where, when, why kind of thing to get everybody up to speed on what we're doing, why we're doing it, who's doing it. And you've met me. Um, let's find out more about you, Lydia. What, and you can go as deep into it as you want. This is the platform to do that. This is a non-judgmental zone. So if I see or any one of us see anybody being disrespectful in the chat,
You're out of here.
you're out of here, buddy. We want to be respectful, supportive, because this is a very serious, topic that we're going to be discussing every other week. So, Lydia, just tell us a little bit, I guess, about your mental health. Maybe what you've been diagnosed with. Why is mental health and the mental health awareness and ending the stigma so important to you?
Well, first of all, I see a comment from Eric.
Oh,
And
yes.
Eric, he did the intro video for
Yes.
us. So thank you. And then Edward Grant, if you're watching, thank you for doing the music for us.
Absolutely.
But as far as my mental health goes, I guess my official diagnosis would be severe depression disorder, anxiety disorder, PTSD, and now I'm throwing in a little bit of body dysmorphia. Because like over the past 2 years, I lost almost 100 pounds, and I still look in the mirror and see like that girl. And then all the films that are coming out, I'm seeing myself as I was. And I'm just like, why didn't anybody tell me? Like, everybody, when you're losing weight, is like, you look great. Like, what are you doing? You look great. But when you start adding on a little bit of weight, nobody says a word. And it could help the person because, we see ourselves differently than other people see ourselves. But about 6 years ago, when I was working, I got hurt and I hit my head pretty bad. So I was diagnosed with a traumatic brain injury from that, which makes the depression even worse because it makes a lot of the medications resilient.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I've had literally since I hit my head a nonstop headache. So over the past, almost 6 years, I've probably been on close to 30 different medications to try and find out what works for me. And that's between the depression, the anxiety, and the TBI.
Wow.
But a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to take antidepressants and I'm going to be fine. But on average, it takes 6 different antidepressants to find one that works for you. So to anybody that's struggling and you're starting with an antidepressant and you're like, this just isn't working, I give up. Like, what's the point? Try another one.
You definitely have to be patient. I've gone down that road for sure.
Yeah, and it sucks because like even right now, I feel like I can't breathe. Like it's heavy on my chest.
Wow.
And I can't, when I try to go into stores, I can't last very long in stores, like probably 10, 15 minutes. And I'm ready to break down. Like by the time I get back to my car, I'm crying. I have panic attacks. Like I was trying to, like 2 weeks ago, I was trying to do meal prep, and I was trying to just portion out the pasta that I had cooked, and I, for the life of me, could not understand how much was going in each thing because the box said that one serving size was 2 ounces, but that's before it was cooked. And I cooked a whole box. So I'm like, how many ounces? And I was driving myself crazy. I was Googling everything. And it got to the point where I just literally broke down.
Wow.
Because my mind could not handle anything else at that point. But now looking back, I'm like, I could have just took all of the pasta I had, weighed it, and divided it by 7 and had my answer. But in that moment,
In that moment, yeah.
I couldn't. I, like there was too much. It was too much for my brain to handle. And I
Well,
don't,
if your chest is tight, having a hard time breathing, why don't you catch your breath for a second? And we will bring in the third co-host, the very lovely Miss Debbie Paulson. Debbie, how are you? It looks like your mic is muted. Yeah,
Hi.
there you go.
oh
Yeah,
my
I
God,
get.
Debbie, we live in the same place.
Well, you know.
We're roommates, and I didn't even know.
I know, it's
Wow,
great.
yeah.
Hey.
So how are you, Debbie? We just introduced Lydia a little bit. We're doing it the dramatic style, bringing them in one by one. That's right.
Yeah, well, right now, guys, if you hear music in the background, yeah, we're not living in the same house. I'm actually someplace called Panera with music playing in the background. But hey, I am here and I have Wi-Fi, so yes.
Awesome. Awesome.
Hi. So, are we introducing ourselves?
Yes, please introduce yourself.
Okay. So, my name is Debbie Paulson. I met Otis. We're calling you Otis here, right?
Yes.
I met Otis through a mutual close friend, a fellow filmmaker. And that's what I am. I'm a filmmaker, singer-songwriter. I'm also a teacher. But after I got to know Otis, I realized how much we have in common. So I guess the reason why I am such an advocate for the issues of mental health. It's okay. So I suffer from PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, and this is multifaceted. And I know that we'll be able to break down some of these things in future episodes. And today is just like an overview: who, what, when, where, and why we are doing this. But for some of the people who will probably be watching this playback, a lot of them will know my story. But for those who don't, so I have a son who I was very close to that I found hanging. He committed suicide. And
I'm so sorry.
thank you. Try not to cry talking about it, but
If you need to cry, cry.
thank you. You know, and that's true. So many people tell us, don't cry.
Yeah, hold it in,
Right.
they tell us,
Right.
Yeah, it's hurtful to see your friends cry when they're in pain, but they
Yeah.
have to do that. And this is definitely the platform. So if the tears start, let them flow, dear.
Thank you. See, and that's what we need to do. We need to be. That's why I'm here. I feel like we all need to educate people that it's okay. It's okay to talk to us about the things we've been through, and not to hide from us. And that was an issue with my son. So my son struggled with OCD and depression and anxiety. And as well-meaning as my church was, he was, trying to get some help from there. They would tell him he was just lacking faith. And when I would go to talk to people about my struggles, and just said, I didn't know what to do. It was again, oh, well, you lack faith. So, and at a certain point, when people tell you to stop talking about it, you don't want to be rejected, so you stop talking about it. But then, unfortunately, it has to go somewhere. So often, we go within ourselves, and that creates loneliness, the feeling of rejection, more anxiety, more depression. And so this was building up and building up and building up with my son. And he also, they thought, there's a lot of these mental health issues that go undiagnosed, especially if you're at the top level of something. So, what they used to call Asperger's, they thought that maybe he had Asperger's, where you lack some of those social skills, and which would made him feel even more isolated. He was this amazing young man, but it's like he just couldn't seem to see that. And so anyhow, uh, there's other issues that actually had created PTSD. I mean, before that, and that was a lot of spousal abuse. And right now I'm going through a divorce. I have a traumatic brain injury from the spousal abuse. That's another taboo subject that a lot of people don't want to talk about.
Because people look at you and it's like, you're fine. What's
yeah,
wrong with you?
right,
It's just a headache.
right. And then they're wondering, wait, why did she forget things so quickly? You know what I mean? And then it can create like, what's wrong, or are you maybe not, not serious about your job, or they might take offense to something because you don't even remember somebody said something. We have almost feels like we have to act in society to get by, and but there's just some things that you can't hide. If you said you have a traumatic brain injury as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you know how it is. That short-term memory is an issue, but I think people need to be aware of that. We're trying.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I have a question about the traumatic brain injury.
Yeah.
When I was, I think about 18 months old, I was at my grandmother's neighbor, and as the story goes, I was running around, of course, probably just learned how to walk, still a little wobbly on my feet. Was running down a little sidewalk path that was in the neighbor's yard. I tripped, and they had like 3 steps that went down into like a cellar, I guess. And I hit all 3 of those steps, or at least 2 of them, on my head. And that the only the only problems that I had that they said was a result of that was sinus headaches, which I don't have anymore. Now, could an injury like that, impact someone throughout life in the realm of mental health, like what you guys are talking about, like not being able to remember things, getting overwhelmed, like you were talking, Lydia, like, why can't I figure this out? What the hell's going on here? Is that something that could happen from such a young age?
It's called post-concussion syndrome.
Right, and that's actually what I have. I have had multiple concussions. Yeah, I have post-concussive syndrome, but a lot of people just recognize it as a traumatic brain injury. But yes, it's post-concussive syndrome.
Okay.
But for me, it's multiple concussions over many years. I also have a seizure disorder. So between the seizure disorder, hitting my head on whatever, the concrete or whatever, and then the other things like the spousal abuse, and on, it created the post-concussive syndrome. But it can stay with you for the rest of your life. But I'm also a special needs teacher, so I do see that with the children that have had a traumatic brain injury. Yeah, if you have a traumatic brain injury from early years, yeah, it can stick with you. It's just probably what might have happened with you is if they didn't take you to the doctor or something like that, it might just not have been diagnosed.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then,
well,
kind of like ADHD. Often back in the day, there was not everybody was diagnosed with it. So a lot of us,
Sure.
I'm one of them, are walking through life with all these ADHD characteristics, but it wasn't diagnosed. So
Right.
yeah. Not in the, you know what I mean. Back years ago, there was a lot of the mental health issues, or neurological issues. They didn't talk about it. I don't think they had a grasp on it. I don't think they had a great understanding about it. So yeah.
Especially because a TBI doesn't show up on an MRI.
Right.
So it's
See, and they were able to see my issues because I have issues with brain swelling. because of it. So once in a while, they can capture that if you have something like brain swelling issues, but it has to be caught in the moment, because even with brain swelling, sometimes it's swelling, sometimes it's not. That's what brain swelling is. Brain swells, it shrinks, swells, it shrinks. It's almost like you have to capture the perfect moment, and often that can only be captured right after the traumatic incident happened. So yeah, a lot of these things are hard to diagnose, but usually a doctor will be able to see the symptoms.
I compare it
And people,
to sorry, I feel I
no,
might
no,
talk
go
over
ahead.
you.
No, go. You're fine.
I compare it to like over the last decade now, football players
Yes.
are being taken out because of multiple concussions. So it's like, okay, you believe them, but I'm showing you I'm legit struggling,
Yeah.
and I'm worthless because I'm
Yeah.
not famous.
Yeah. Yeah, which is why we're doing this, so we can start talking about it. And I bet you that many people that are watching this can understand. You know,
Yeah.
um,
Absolutely.
or there's another side of this, that I think this could be a great place for many people to support each other, because a lot of us have lived with or are living with people, loved ones, that have issues. So one of my family members that I'm not living with anymore, but has an issue with bipolar and antisocial personality disorder. That's a whole other issue. And that, I don't know if any of you know of people with those issues. Often, um, people will come off, if they have something along the lines of antisocial personality disorder and narcissism, they come off as amazing people.
Mhm.
And then those of us that are struggling with things like post-traumatic stress syndrome, we just look like there's something wrong with us. I think I've heard that a lot from people recently, that they would like to hear more about that, when they have to live with somebody that is narcissistic, or has something like an antisocial personality disorder. I mean, what do they do to convince people that they're telling the truth, they're not lying? How do they keep themselves safe when somebody with those personality disorders is coming off so charismatic? Are you guys familiar with people that have antisocial personality disorder or narcissistic behaviors?
I am not no antisocial personality disorder. I have not mentioned yet in the introductions, but I have a borderline personality disorder. And so I am in the personality disorder spectrum. And speaking of those that are living with somebody, or close, a loved one that is dealing with either antisocial personality disorder, or narcissistic personality disorder, borderline, any one of the personality disorders. Those who were here and saw the intro, you may have noticed a name, Jody Williams, and that is my wife. And she's going to join from time to time to give that perspective, because she is not diagnosed with anything. Although I say she's a little off for marrying me and staying with me all these years, but that's another topic.
But that is important. The people that are living with you, who are just supporting you through your issues,
Right.
because it's hard on them.
It is.
They're picking up the extra slack. They're doing so many things because you can't. And then you feel like they're going to resent me because I can't do this.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it brings about, a lot of problems. Living with somebody with, in particular, borderline personality disorder, which I also have complex PTSD, CPTSD. Um, what else?
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So, one thing that I've recognized, being a exceptional student education teacher So for children with special needs, we all know what these acronyms mean, but not everybody else does. So can you explain to the audience what your personality disorder is, so that they might know, because not everybody's going to know what that personality disorder is.
No, absolutely. Borderline personality disorder is really at the root of it is a inability to regulate your emotions. That is really the core of borderline. And it is misdiagnosed with bipolar, which I was up until about 20 some years ago diagnosed with bipolar. Then I got what's called borderline schizophrenic. I thought that meant I was on the border of being schizophrenic. I had no idea. And then I looked it up, which I want to take a minute, encourage everyone listening. If you get diagnosed with something, take the time, look it up, do your own little research, and read it for yourself. And that's what I did. And I found out that that's actually a separate diagnosis, because in not so severe cases of schizophrenia, there are some overlapping symptoms and whatnot with borderline personality disorder. The reason that it's misdiagnosed with bipolar is because of the ups and downs. With bipolar, you can go up and it can last, 3 or 4 days, you're up and then you crash. With borderline, you do that minute by minute, hour by hour. You can, in the morning, you are great. You're going to have a fantastic day. Somebody looks at you wrong or just looks at you and your brain starts telling you, oh, he thinks I'm this, he thinks I'm that. I've done that with loved ones. It's, and also perceived abandonment. Which I have done, thinking that, my wife's going to leave me. There was no cause. There was no reason for me to think that.
So that would be where the paranoia comes in.
And paranoia is also, yes.
So it's like levels then. It's, you're on a spectrum.
Yeah.
People can be on an autistic spectrum and they're really high functioning, and but not stemming. So yeah, one of the ways people can cope, one of the things I have learned, deep breathing, because that deep breathing, I don't know if you've tried that, but I was taught through college and other trainings that I've done when my students are having issues with that. The thinking, you just think and you do. You think and you do. What's actually happening is we begin thinking with our brainstem, very primitive thoughts. I need to eat. I need to do this. Whatever. And then we go to our limbic system, and that's where the emotions are. And it sounds like with this personality disorder, it kind of gets stuck there, right there in the emotions. So what should be happening is we should be going from our limbic system to our frontal lobe, and that's where our executive functioning system is, and that's where all the processing takes place. That's an issue. It sounds like with the personality disorder you're talking about, it's an issue with ADHD. See, I am aware that it's an issue with our PTSD, but sometimes it's one thing when it's in my brain. You know what I mean? We all can know this. But you know how it is when you're dealing with this. Sometimes it's hard. You feel what you feel. So sometimes when we take those deep breaths, actually there's synapses that are happening in our brain, and it causes our thinking to slow down, and dopamine is released, and it's something that you can try. Something we all can try if we can talk ourselves into doing it.
Exactly. And then that's really the hardest part, Debbie. I think you guys will agree. That's, because, I mean, I just, not just recently, got very manic. There was a lot of things going on. A few weeks ago, I got off of a set doing my first, acting, gig, and the high was so high. Of course, actors know about the drop after getting off a set. It's a very depressing. You want to
Mhm.
feel that high that you
This is
felt.
that rush. You're getting that
That it was
excitement
such
to
a
enjoy
rush
it.
seeing everything happen, and it being the first time, it was pretty hard for me. And on top of that, I was dealing with a lot of alcohol cravings. I'm coming up on a year, and it hit me
Mhm.
really hard because actors drink.
Yeah.
That's a lot of them do. And well, there was a few of them, there that were, having some beverages, and didn't bother me. I didn't think it did. Then all of a sudden, the anxiety kicked in, the depression kicked in. It
Mhm.
was a whole gamut. It was just a whole bunch of stuff
Yeah.
going on in my head, and I got very manic, and anybody that tried to help me, I lost friends over it. That tried to help me, and I
Although
I blew up. And
reframing your mind, you and I connected really well after that.
yeah,
Some of this is reframing our mind too, trying
and
not to focus on that negative and what we do have.
yeah,
We
and
have
and
more
you
than we don't.
and put a lighter, that there is, a light at the end of the tunnel with at least borderline personality disorder, because they have treatments that don't involve medication. If you are against that, I am taking medication, and Lydia is on, this way. Lydia is on some, is taking medication. Some of us have to do that.
Well, and I take Keppra for my seizure disorder, but my seizure disorder is, I mean, it's the pseudo seizures. Just what it
No,
is, you know.
yeah.
And it's from, there's a lot of other traumas that have happened in my life, but my daughter, I actually can connect with you, Lydia, but on the parent side, it's my, here comes the tears again. I feel for you. Also feel for your loved ones, because when my daughter struggled for about 5 years with anorexia and bulimia, in the very last bout, and she was hospitalized in those treatment centers, those 28-day stays, over and over and over again. When I got to at this point, I didn't know what to say. I thought I was helping, but every word I said made her feel bad about herself, or you know that sometimes we don't see what you see. I saw a very, very thin person that I was fearful of, but she saw and literally saw something different. So I know, like, her therapist would tell me at a certain point, just tell her she has beautiful eyes. So now we have this standing thing where if I don't know what to say, I just say, you have beautiful eyes.
No, I
But,
understand because
yes.
I literally, like, I didn't eat today, and yesterday I didn't eat until, like, I have really bad insomnia, and I woke up in the middle of the night and I made myself like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So literally over 2 days, that's what I've had, and I know doing that is sending me down the wrong path, but I'm like, finally, people are like complimenting me and noticing me, and it's difficult.
Yeah.
And that is so sad that, it's almost like societal pressure, because what society deems as beautiful or pretty or acceptable, causes people to think that they are not, because they don't resemble what this person looks like. I had issues myself thinking my wife would leave me for somebody younger because he was built better, or he had this, or whatever. And society makes you think, drills in your head that this is what a woman should look like. And it's sad, and I'm sorry that you have to go through that. That's horrible.
Well, I was doing really good for a while, like I was counting my calories, and that's how, like, I lost a majority of the weight. But it just seems like the past month or two, I'm just like, I don't I don't want to eat. I don't think sometimes I like at the end of the day I'm like, did I eat today? Like and I never thought that I would be that person because I was the person that was eating multiple meals a day and snacks, and that's how I got up to 250 pounds. Um, but now I'm just like, okay, my I know technically because like I done a lot of research, there's no such thing as like starvation mode. Um, but I'm like, my body's holding on to the little bit that I'm giving it. And like I get up from a chair and I instantly feel lightheaded. Um, and it makes me not want to drive. I don't drive a lot of places anymore. It's just scary. And I know that I just need to eat. And when I do try to eat like a full meal, I feel instantly sick and have to throw up, because I can't.
Well, can I pipe in real quick? I would like to give you a word of encouragement and everybody else who watches this podcast. You are here, and that makes you a conqueror. And I see you as a strong woman, and I think you should be proud of yourself because you showed up, and you showed up to try to encourage others, and you are using your own pain for a purpose. And I think that's pretty cool. You know what I mean? We all have our struggles, and we can either sit there and, just feel sorry for ourselves, but you're not doing that. You are here to tell other people, look, I'm going through it, and I've made it, and I'm going to make it, and you can too. And I think that's pretty cool. And one thing I learned, because I sometimes go to NAMI. I don't know if anybody is aware of NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness. So sometimes I go to their online groups. And one thing that I heard from them that's always stuck with me is that mental health is not linear. First, I didn't even know what that meant. I'm like, what does that mean? It's not linear. I'm a teacher, so I'm thinking logical. Like, what are we talking about? And they explained to me that it just simply means that we're not going to feel the same every day. When we struggle with something, emotional health issues or mental health issues, today might be amazing. Tomorrow we're going to be down. And the next day we might be at the top of the roller coaster. The next day we might be at the bottom. But for people that struggled like my son, I just want to encourage them, and for us to all stay encouraged that, make sure you get to tomorrow, because even though we might be down today, tomorrow we're going to be at the top of the roller coaster, or maybe it's the next day. And we have a lot to offer. Everybody, all three of us, I feel like, have a lot to offer. And I'm sure everybody who watches this, you have something to offer. I have something I can share with the world, an experience I've been through, and how I'm daily choosing. This is a choice for us. We choose to make it. We choose to get through to the next day. We choose to get up and get through to the next day. And, sometimes have to just choose to get out of bed.
Yeah, and it's so tough when you're in the grips of it to get up. And when I was at probably the worst, drinking a lot of mental health issues, there was a lot of self-harm that happened. I wasn't much of a father, and I wasn't much of a parent. And that is tough. Does that affect you, Lydia? Because you have I'm not sure how many kids.
I have 3.
3. That's what I was thinking. I mean, does that ever?
It is affecting them, and it makes me feel. It makes me feel even worse because they're so innocent, and I don't want them to end up like me. But when my son tells me, like, why doesn't mommy smile? And he tells me, that he has to make himself smile, and that he's sad and he doesn't know why, and he's only 7. And I'm like, it's because that's the only version of me that he knows, because they were barely 2 when I got hurt. Um, and that for me is probably the worst part.
You know, your children sound like they're amazing children. I'm sure you call them beautiful, right?
Every day I do like affirmations with my daughter. I tell her, I'm like, who's the prettiest girl in the whole wide world? Who's the smartest girl in the whole wide world? Who's the sweetest girl in the whole wide world? Because I want her to grow up with the confidence that a lot of people don't have.
So I have to ask you a question. Then. What does that say about you? Because they say that often, well, not often, they say that when we look at our children, we're looking at a reflection of ourselves. So you must be pretty amazing. I think you've done a good job.
I
So
just
those words of affirmation. You know, every time that we speak something positive over ourselves, that's a reflection to our kids. So you know, even sometimes if we have to, I think one thing we can encourage each other to do and ourselves to do is look in the mirror until we believe it and say, I am beautifully and wonderfully made. I am amazing. I'm smart. I'm a good parent. Until it becomes true. And
I
well,
don't know if
mhm.
either of you deal with guilt.
Oh, that would be me. I do a lot because of my son's suicide. So I know, I believe me, when I'm preaching to myself too. I have to do it every day. A lot of times I don't believe what I'm saying when I look in the mirror. I don't believe it. I think it's my fault often that my son is not alive. I have to look myself in the mirror, and I think we all have to do that. We have to look at ourselves in the mirror and say just what, maybe even like, what would we say to our kids? You know, they see us, and we are the reflection. And you know, and I have to force myself. I still have 2 live children; they're adult children. But I'm their example. So I have to look at myself in the mirror. Maybe sometimes just reframe my mind and say the opposite of what I'm thinking at that moment. You know, I'm a great parent. I might laugh at myself a couple times when I'm saying it because I'm not believing it. I'm a great parent. I'm a great parent.
Right.
You know, I'm a good example. I'm smart.
A lot of the times I feel guilty because I'm like, I'm pretty like well off. Like, like I have a house. I'm I'm fine. I'm struggling inside, but on the outside I'm okay. And I feel guilty because I know like these soldiers are coming back and they're missing limbs, and they, some of them have died, and I'm like, who am I to say, oh, I'm depressed when other people are going through so much worse? So I feel a lot of guilt about that, and that's just something I struggle with.
Mm.
Yeah, I think I've thought that a little bit, that same thing, that comparing yourself with they're worse off. So, I fail in comparison to, my pain. But my pain is my pain.
Mm-hmm.
And wherever it's at on the scale of bad to severe, wherever I'm at, that's what I got to deal with. It doesn't invalidate, my pain because somebody else is, coming home, from a war or in a much worse situation. I understand where you're coming from because I have also done that on certain levels. And then even on the opposite side of that, I have done it to where, um, I look at people that are very well off, and that makes me feel, maybe not so much guilt, but that makes me feel even worse. Like, man, look at this guy's, 40 some years old. I'm 50, 51. And look what he's got, and look what that, and then I feel like, such a loser that, because I haven't done anything.
Yes, you have.
And I get carried away because I get too much inside my head, and then I realize, because this has happened here recently, and I mean like in the past couple of years, and then I think, oh, wait a minute, I'm a grandfather. What
Yeah.
what am I thinking about? What am I talking about? You
That's that
know?
reframing the mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that I'm learning. I have a neuroscience coach. Her name is Carol Register. She's amazing, and she's been helping me with reframing my mind. You would be amazed at what we tell ourselves, just how much that it affects our lives. It can affect it's affecting my
Oh,
health.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, but it really, how the things we tell ourselves, things that our subconscious believes, it literally can change our health. And so there's a lot of neurological issues I'm struggling with, that on top of the brain swelling and traumatic brain injury, um, that my mental health has to be fixed, because my subconscious, it's one thing when my conscious mind, and I'm telling myself one thing, my subconscious has to believe it. So yeah, but that reframing our minds over and over and over and over and over again until we finally believe it, it's so important. That's what I hear you saying. Yeah. I'm gonna have to take
That's
4 minutes, guys.
and that, yeah, it absolutely is. And going back to the borderline personality disorder, DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, and CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, have been proven to be extremely effective with borderline, and that's basically what they're doing. They're teaching you to rewire your brain because trauma or something else has caused you to veer off into a negative path, negative self-talk, and you've wired your brain. You can rewire your brain. Okay, as amazing and complicated as the brain is, you literally have the power to do that by doing just what you said,
Yeah,
Debbie, and just self-talk, but
yep,
self-talk the right stuff. And that's
exactly.
what CBT and DBT,
Right.
that's what they focus on,
Yeah, and I movement resolution therapy. In fact, I'm gonna have to go soon. They're gonna they're closing, guys. I'm gonna have to tap out in 3 minutes.
No,
But I
you're
was
good.
here because I feel like this is worth it, and everybody
Yes.
who's watching,
Tell them
they're
you can't
important
kick
enough for
us
me to
out.
come.
We're in the middle of a
No,
podcast. We
right?
got we got 10 minutes. Just let me hang out for a minute.
It's kind of staring at me. But anyways, before I go, on that note, yes, I just want to encourage people to go talk to whoever their behavioral therapist is, and it is okay. Don't let anybody tell you it's not okay to go get help. It's okay to ask for help, and it doesn't make you crazy. It does. It just means that you're healthy in an unhealthy situation. That's one thing that was told to me. All these traumatic things that have happened in our lives, this is our brain's way of protecting us, to keep us safe, right? It's our brain's way of trying to keep us healthy in an unhealthy situation. So sometimes we need stuff like this to do those finishing touches to make it so that we can function better and eventually be fully healed. And maybe we'll just might be spending the rest of our lives learning how to be healthier and healthier, to cope, and that's okay too. um, but I tomorrow even I go to eye movement resolution therapy. So it's EMDR, and that's another thing if people want to research it, if they're struggling with post-traumatic stress syndrome, especially the most severe kind. Talk therapy, just for people like me, talk therapy doesn't work. movement resolution therapy does. So it's a, you'll have to look it up, or we could talk about it in another broadcast, but it helps connect the left and the right hemisphere. So often scientifically, if there's some people out there that are more scientific based, when we've gone through something extremely severe, like nobody should have to ever find their son hanging. You have no idea what that, I mean, if you just even try to put yourself in that situation, I have a lot of people that can't even talk to me because when this topic gets brought up, because they're so fearful of that possibly happening to their child. I'm unfortunately to them, I am their worst fear, which then for a while isolated me, and that's again for another segment. But your brain isn't wired. You know, even like war veterans, like let's see, they've seen their friends blown up. Your mind is not wired to see that. That's not supposed to happen. And so what your brain does often, from what I've learned through my therapies, is your left and right hemisphere will stop talking like they're supposed to, because it can't connect those dots. It's just you might have a heart attack, or you could have a stroke, or because your body reacts to these things. And so my brain has been trying to protect itself, but now it's time for my brain to cooperate. So I have to do EMDR, that movement resolution therapy, and it has been proven scientifically to be effective. So it's another one people check out.
Absolutely.
I gotta tap out though, guys.
All right, dear. Well, I'll talk to you soon.
All right, and thank you for letting me join you guys. And
Absolutely.
Great to meet you.
Thank you. So before I go, can we tell the audience when they'll see us again?
Absolutely. It will be. Let me actually bring up the calendar because we are doing bi-weekly. Talking about this can be a little rough, and to do it, every week, as Lydia proposed, bi-weekly, and I think it's a great idea. So the 21st of this month will be our next broadcast. So please pass it along.
Yeah, I think it'd be great for people to drop us a line and tell us what they would like to talk about, what they would like to hear more.
Absolutely. And they can do that. Of course, a lot of them are probably watching over there, but they can do that there at the Dred the Stigma podcast on Facebook. Yeah. You can come over and join us. Drop us suggestions, what you would like to hear us discuss. Well, before they call the cops, Debbie, you better get your butt out of there.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting stared down.
I know. Get out of here.
You guys are awesome. All right, so dread the stigma, everybody. We don't dread the stigma. That's right. So we're bringing it out.
It's all gang signs.
Yo, I don't know. It's trying to be gangster, but I don't know that it looks good on me, guys.
I know. I'm not good with goodbyes.
Yeah. Anyways, before I go, I just want to encourage everybody. If you've already gone through pain, why not use your pain for a purpose?
That's right.
All right. See you guys later.
All right. Bye-bye, dear.
Bye.
Yeah, well, she was about to get kicked out. Oh, there she goes. She turned her camera off. Forgot to out. Well, Lydia, thank you, for being a part of this. I wasn't sure if it was going to take off. Had some issues early on with co-host, and you said, hey, I'll jump on, I'll do it. And I do know how much mental health awareness and mental health means to you, and as well as Debbie losing her son, sadly, to suicide. And I guess now's a bad time to say that they're, give you a trigger warning because we're about to end the show. But I forgot to do that in the beginning. It was a little chaotic and my head couldn't think.
But honestly, every episode would be a trigger episode.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm gonna get a little warning to pop up in the beginning of the show to let everyone know, hey, there's gonna be talk of depression, of self-harm, of other things that may trigger you. We are not medical professionals. We
Nope.
are dealing with these things ourselves. We are the ones that are suffering from the PTSD. What we offer is our opinions and not, any kind of medical advice. Again, a whole spiel I should have did in the beginning of the show, but I didn't.
Well, now I know for the 21st.
The 21st. Yes, that will be the next episode, and over there on Facebook. Hopefully, you get the YouTube up, so this will be over on our channel. I'm still waiting, but I can get it up over there. So I'll get that out for anybody who missed it. Thanks again to Debbie for joining us. Hopefully she's okay and didn't have to get drug out just for using a little bit of Wi-Fi. But anyway, thank you guys. And I think I'm just going to use the intro for the outro because
we'll have to think of an outro now.
I know. Now I need an outro. I'm going to have to give Eric a call again. Eric, I need a good outro, man, because he did a fantastic job on it. So with that being said, thank you guys. We'll see you the 21st. And remember, together with open discussion and education, we will end the stigma.
Mm-hmm.